Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The recitation is from Gauri Kabir Ji. These are compositions of 3 stanzas, each consisting of 4 lines. Tipade, Char Tuke. Gauri Kabir Ji, Tipade, Char Tuke, and the recitation. Jamte ulat bhae hai Ram, dukh bin se sukh kiyo bisaram. बैरी उलट भय है मीता, साकत उलट सुजन भय चीता। अब मोहे सर्ब कुशल कर मान्या, सांत भई जब गोबिंद जान्या रहाओ। तन में होती कोट योपाधि, उलट भई सुख सहज समाधि। आप पछाणे आपे आप, रोग न व्यापे तीनों ताप। अब मन उलट सनातन हुआ, तब जान्या जब जीवत मुआ। कहो कबीर सुख सहज समावो, आप न डरो न अवर डरावो। So we find in this passage that there is a transformation that has come about in Kabir, because he says, Ab jamte ulat bhae hai Ram. Ulat. Ulat is the important key word in this passage. Ulat means upside down, topsy-turvy. So what he's saying is, I have turned away from the path of destruction, jam, meaning I've turned away from the path of the ego. Jamte ulat bhae. And now, hai Ram, I'm in the presence of the self. That's the transformation that has come about in Kabir, and we will see how that happens. Kabir now describes the state of his mind. He says, my sorrows have departed, dukha binase, destroyed. And now, sukha kiyo bisram, I rest in well-being and comfort. This sense of well-being and comfort is what sukh is. Ease, natural ease. And enemies have turned into friends. Beri ulat bhae hai meeta. And my ego has become my friend. Sakat ulat sujana bhae cheeta. Sakat usually used to denote critics, people who do not follow the path of Gurmat. But when we talk about the inner transformation that Kabir has undergone, we have to look at the inner symbolism. So, Beri ulat bhae hai meeta could also denote the senses, because the senses and the ego are our real enemies. So it is in that context that we should understand this passage. There's various levels at which you can pick up the meanings. Because when the transformation comes about within you, it changes the attitude towards the world. So what is ordinary becomes extraordinary. Enemies are no longer enemies, no longer perceived as enemies, because one has recognized the presence of Ram everywhere, in everything, in every being. So how could there possibly be a sense of animosity? And so the senses too, our inner friends, have become, our inner enemies as ego have become friends as hukam. And then Kabir in the Rahao, the central message, says, Ab mohe sarb kusal kar manya, sant bhai jab gobind janya. Ab mohe sarb kusal kar manya. Again, Kabir's poetry is very open-ended, lends itself to various meanings. I have tried to understand this as saying that when I recognize the Gobind self in me, Sant Bhai Jab Gobind Janaya, peace descended on me. Now I pray for the welfare of humanity. This could also be understood to say, Ab mohe sarab kusal kar manaya, to say that whatever happens is kusal, is just as well. Acceptance. So you could look at it in both ways, and they don't really contradict each other, because when you accept things in hukam, then peace does descend upon you. You see? Tanamay hoti kod upadi, ulat bhai sukh sahaj samadhi. Aap pachhane ape aap, rog na vyape tino taap. Now, this is what has happened. The afflictions that I endured, my countless ailments, that is what upad is, afflictions of the mind. Ulat bhai, situation is reversed. I'm in a state of spontaneous well-being, sukh sahaj samad, bliss. You're in a state of natural ease. You're not resisting anything or anything that is happening around you. You have learned the art of surfing what life has to throw at you. So Kabir says, I was afflicted, but now the situation is reversed. Ab man ulat sanatan hua. So Kabir speaks about the mind in terms of inman and unman in Bani. Inman meaning the limited mind, unman meaning its opposite, the unlimited mind. And we are comprised of both of these. The unlimited mind creates a limited center of experience that we call haume. And it is not authentic. It is just an abstraction. It is a creation for us to navigate through life. We have to realize that our real source still remains unman. So we have to flip the mind around to understand that. So Kabir is experiencing that and he's sharing it with us. He says, Ab man ulat gaya, and has become sanatan. Sanatan is a word that needs to be understood. Sanatan means universal in one sense, but in a more narrow, constricted sense, it also means being free. Being free of what? Being free of all prevailing ritual, religious practices. Because on one end is Sanatan Dharam, at the other end is Swaya Dharam, which is your own personal practice. What Kabir is saying is that when you experience the self, you are freed of all ritual practice. There's no need for that, essentially. Kaho Kabir, Sukh Sahaj Sabhav. That is the way to find Sahaj. But of course, this is a journey. You are required to kill the ego, so to speak, and that is no easy task. So essentially, what we can gather from this passage is the difference between acquired belief, which is what we all practice. It has been given to us, so we accept it. So we create, in fact, divisions and walls. We are constructing boundaries by beliefs. So the difference is you have to shatter those walls and in its place build authentic faith. Then you have to also unlearn the meaning that you have been taught culturally. And in its place, experience. You have to create your own experience and meaning. That is what you have to learn. Thirdly, we passively internalize what is given to us. Kabir is saying you have to actively absorb the experience of the self. You cannot just internalize what is given to you as a belief system. It has to become an active, dynamic way of living. So the difference between acting on handed down cultural scripts, we are all given our cultural scripts and we behave accordingly. But Kabir is telling us, along with Guru Nanak, you have to create your own story. You have to create your own myth. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.